on this Friday afternoon. We've got recording underway. Feel free to sort of turn your video on. At some point in time, we'll anyway be having like an interactive sort of conversation. So I'm just going to start my screen share. Please let me know. Elise, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Amazing. Technology works. Amazing. All right. So I'm going to, yeah, there we go. Sorry, just 1 second. Zoom has a bunch of different things that you need to get out of the way so that what you're looking at is easier to see. Anyway, so thanks for joining in. I know there are 1 or 2 Gujaratis in the room, so it'd be interesting to know if I've got the essence of some of my learnings from this. At the outset, I'd like to say that I am not a Gujarati. Neither am I. Neither anyone in my family who's a Gujarati. But I've always been fascinated about this business community and how there is such a, I mean, right from a very early age, they're encouraged to express themselves sort of in an entrepreneurial spirit. And today, in today's day and age, we're trying to draw parallels in this, like Elise said, right? All of us have spent so much time indoors. And over the last 18 months, because we haven't been able to have physical interaction, there's this explosion of online communities. And it got me thinking about, okay, maybe there's something to learn from well-established communities and maybe what we can do online. So that is the premise. So if you move to slide 1, yes, all 3 are me. And so, here's my invitation to you. If we've got 19 people in the room right now, maybe if you can introduce yourself, not from where you're located and what your sort of professional background is, though do share your LinkedIn profile if you want to connect with others. Type in one community that you're a part of. Like, for example, I put over here, I've been a serial entrepreneur for 18 years. I'm a half Punjabi, half Kogi for the last 40 years, thereby giving away my age. I've been a DJ, I've been a martial artist, but there are so many different things. And the moment you start introducing each other or getting to know someone from the point of view of these many communities that they've been part of, which are their core interests, which formulate their personalities, maybe in an online format, suddenly there are so many more questions you can ask as opposed to, necessarily what you do and et cetera, et cetera. So I'd encourage you, if you can sort of type in one community that you're a part of and how long you've been part of it, just type it in the chat window right now. Moving on, and also I spell my name Karn, and it's Karn is correct in terms of how you pronounce it. Overview. So what are we going to talk about? So good Jews, that's what they popularly sort of refer to as. And then we're going to talk about 3 different sort of stages, right? Grounding, discovery, and expression. And we're going to go into one specific framework, which is the Atelier framework, and I'll share a link to that. They're a large community building platform. There's one more after that helps create community specifically. So let's say if you're from a company background and you want to professionally engage someone to help create a community for you, there are some references also, as also other communities that we've looked at. Now, this is a saying in Gujarati, and maybe some of the good Jews in the room might know. It says, Jivan ma kaike motu karvuche. Okay, I might not be saying it right, my apologies for that, but what this literally translates into is, in life, let's do something big. Let's live a bigger life. Let's make something happen. Let's do something big. And in the photograph, you can actually see this gentleman. A couple of years ago, India came out with the 2,000 rupee note. This gentleman is actually holding up what might be, a garland of notes. So that's what that actually is. So, literally you make something big, of life. And that's the spirit of the community as a whole. So a little bit more about the community. They love food and Garba. Garba is their form of dance. It's very colorful. It happens quite often during this 9-day festival called Navratri. They're very lively, sometimes a bit loud as well. They're a very astute business community. You have some very successful, well-known, some of these faces you might know. That's Mahatma Gandhi, the considered the father of the nation. Gujarat is on the west coast of India. That's where it's at. Dev Patel is also a Gujarati, BAFTA award-winning actor. Then you have Sunita Williams. Her dad is a Gujarati. Mukesh Ambani is the richest Indian amongst the top richest men in the world. Of course, our Prime Minister, and Mallika Sarabhai, an international danseuse. Then a couple of other stats, right? I mean, if you look at, this is the whole of India, but 25% of India's exports come from this one state, including cotton and milk. 1/4 of the cotton and milk produced for the whole country comes from this one state. 8 out of 10 diamonds in the world are polished in Surat, which is at the edge over here. And 50% of India's billionaires all come from this one state. So it's a very, very prosperous state, right? Therefore, they must be doing something right as a community. So what's the first thing we're going to look at? Grounding, right? What is the background? What are some early seeding behaviors, and what parts of the foundation do we focus on? Now, after every one bit I'm going to talk, I'm going to draw a parallel with community building. And if you have any questions that come to mind, please feel free to chat them, type them into the chat box as well. So, for example, and this is a different community, but it's a similar thing that happens with Gujaratis as well, right? So among Sindhis, they have a specific term called Sindhvarki, which is essentially this young kid who comes in as an apprentice from a very young age. He's trained in all aspects of the business. The person who's doing it has a full understanding that this person is going to go away and start their own business. And that is accepted and that is encouraged. So from a very young age, kids are encouraged to come to the shop, learn from multiple uncles, aunts, which is seen as an investment in the future, right? So when they're still fertile and they still don't know and they're still finding their feet, you're giving them specific input. The family itself is seen as a support mechanism. So there's a very strong sort of safety net, And because a lot of them come from a business background, inherently, fundamentally, you will find, and we'll see this going forward as we talk about it, that many of them go into business because the way their brain itself is wired is along those lines. So because they have such an access to information. And they imprint very early because at this impressionable age, right? So they pick up subliminal cues around negotiation, customer handling, managing people. Imagine, the kid is not even thinking about this, but they're picking this up at a very, very early age. And some of this also goes back historically, right? Because Gujarat is on the west coast, and it has across all the states that are along the coast, both on the west and on the east, it has for one state, it has the single longest coastline, about 1,600 kilometers long. So there was a lot of historical trade that happened over there. So you can see, for many, many generations going back, there was this behavior of trading and business that has come down. Now, if you draw a parallel with community building, right? So very early on, it's very important for you to make the why of the community clear at the outset. What fundamentally it will do is that you will attract the right quality of people as opposed to a quantity of people. Suddenly you have a whole bunch of people who don't know what to do with them, but make the why, and why is it that you're creating this community right at the outset. Encourage people who want to learn and engage. So this apprenticeship peer learning framework. So it becomes very important to create some sort of mentor framework. Identify the ones who are more experienced in specific domains, make them your mentors, ask them if they'd like to be, create a buddy system if you have to. You'll have people from service as also business. So different people from different backgrounds will want, everyone's going to ask, what's in it for me, right? So you need to be able to answer this. And someone coming from a service mindset, let's say working in a corporate, what he or she wants from this community or they want from this community is very different from what someone who's an entrepreneur is looking to, and at different stages of their business. So the mentor framework can help create a pyramid structure which functions as a safety net. Then in addition to this, it's very important to have rituals, right? And establish these rituals very early on, where there's a regular cadence of engagement, conversation. And I'm just talking, say, the early framework. Even if you haven't sort of activated this immediately, help create an early framework where people feel safe, people feel seen. That's what ultimately people want. In the last 18 months, we really haven't seen each other as much. We've seen each other through this kind of lens. So how can you help people be seen more? And they identify, like attracts like, right? So they identify with each other. So that's a community parallel of grounding. Now let's go back to the Guju community, right? Now, once they've got this early sort of learning and they've got the safety net, they have access to this information, and they've picked up a lot of these subliminal cues. What do they do with these learnings? What is the next stage in that sort of evolution, right? It comes down to anchors. One key part is, so irrespective of whether they're going to join the community or not, join the business or not, they have to get a degree. They have to get educated, and they have to get a good degree as well, whether they're going to do it in India or they're going to go overseas, because this also plays a role in when they get married, apparently, because they want to know that, okay, how educated is this boy? How educated is this girl? How educated is this person? It's a thing. Apparently, it is a thing. So, and when they get married, many of them get married early as well, and by virtue of being seen as a family person, right? I remember having this conversation with someone, and he was saying, I was sitting in this wedding hall where a whole bunch of people were there, and he was saying, you know what, marriage is a social contract. These two people are getting married in front of 300 people, right? So they're taking their vows, so the community is as invested. And especially in the Gujarati community, the moment you become a family person, the community supports you even more with business. They leverage a peer network. The father has created a certain network in terms of his vendors, partners, suppliers, etc. When the kids come of age, let's say 19, 20, 21, and that's literally what is coming of age in terms of business is concerned, these networks are passed on to this level. So uncle and this uncle and that uncle, they all have kids, and they have sons and daughters. All of them start getting involved, and they establish trust and network. So a running business, profitability, all of those are sort of passed down also. And there are brownie points for referrals and jobs that are given in the community. You want to look good, right? So if you help someone who is in the community and that is encouraged, you look even better. And they're constantly exploring new domains, right? So that is also encouraged in the context of risk taking that we said early on, because the course correction is always available by way of the elders who are there in the community. Similar thing, like we said, with the moment we have a mentor network and we have some engagement happening over there, people can be encouraged to sort of ask a question or an unconventional or a difficult question, or even just what might be a stupid question, because you know that it can be answered, that knowledge is there. Now, if you were to, and as Karn has said over here, a friend of mine, his grandfather, quite often when he had to establish a rapport with someone that he didn't know, especially if it's someone not in the same language, he would say he would carry a box of sweets and incense sticks, because in Indian culture and also across Southeast Asia, there's certain auspiciousness associated with incense and with sweet. And starting something, eating in Hindi, they say, you have a sweet when you do something good, or you start something new. So by virtue of that, those are the traditions they sort of took forward. So in a community context, what are some of the traditions we can sort of create, right? Now, if you look at anchors, different people are coming in from different geographical, cultural, educational, professional backgrounds. So try and capture, if possible, maybe in terms of, if you have a form that you created or a way of engaging with them one-on-one, capture some of this information. Because what happens is, there might be two entrepreneurs talking to each other. One comes, let's say, from Africa, another one comes from India, and they like the vibe, but then there are some inherent cultural biases that might also come into play. And if you can capture some of those and help understand or help facilitate understanding of some of those, through different mechanisms, the success and the likelihood of them engaging goes up, right? And that's what you are doing in the community that you could look to create. Identify across the network. A lot of people will come into the community saying, okay, this is what I want right now. What's in it for me, right? But then some people are saying, okay, I'd love to sort of jump in and understand, maybe something I want to do long term. Maybe these people can contribute in the short term. So, having regular check-ins. Personally, for me, I'm in Bangalore right now, and sitting out of Bangalore, I've developed a large network in Singapore and other places just using Lunch Club. I would highly recommend using lunchclub.com because it has a very serendipitous way where people can make connections, right? Gather Round is another one where we do with regular check-ins within our team. So, and people take in information in different ways. Some people like listening to, let's say, a podcast. Some people like reading the book. Some people like watching the synopsis of the book on a video on YouTube. So figure out different ways where there are different kinds of, access to information. what is the easiest way, or a couple of different ways that they can take in information. If you only have it as documents or a wiki or a FAQs page, you might be missing out on engaging with some others. And also, in sharing all of this, especially early on, try not to push them to, okay, you need to engage, right? We've done this, so you have to engage. Don't push them on that. Give them the freedom to express themselves, that we're seeing over here. So after we've gone through the initial sort of grounding and then the discovery, how does the expression happen? Let's say if you look at the community, the Guju community, what does an abundant community look like? So very often, because they have this risk-taking sort of mindset, and they're encouraged, and they have this safety net, they're always on the lookout for new opportunities, and they invariably invest in the long term because they come from a business mindset. They know that safety net is there. They actually do really well in the stock market, and historically this works really well. Like, for example, Juhi has said, and she's again, someone I know. She has out of 21 cousins, I think 10 on one side and 11 on the other. 19 of them are in business today, and they're all in her same age group. Primarily because a certain mindset seeds another kind of mindset, right? So, so creating geographical concentrations of wealth and success. And we want to do this virtually, and we'll sort of come to that in the community context, right? Historically, you will see, like in India, as also in other parts of Southeast Asia, specific districts, specific cities just ended up being really much more wealthy because there was a concentration of a certain kind of behavior that was seeded over there. Also, because there is constant referral within the community, you will also find people being very conscious of not rubbing someone off the wrong way, because there is an accepted way of behaving. And if you fall into that, and of course, it's entirely up to someone whether they want to revolt or not. It's not like a hard line thing. But listen, if you do something great and you're consistent, etc., even if you're charging me a little extra, it's okay, because I know what you're going to give me is high quality, and then I can pass the same thing on. So there's a lot of trust over there. Likewise, if you fall short of any kind of promise that you make, then there are repercussions, right? And I think similar sort of parallels could be drawn on the community side as well. Often, taking over a completely new domain by becoming the manufacturer, vendor, partner, investor, and consumer. So quite often, let's say today there's an opportunity to get into a completely new industry. You will find that a group of them will get together, one will become a manufacturer, another person will buy it from it, etc. And this is what they actually do. And there's precedent of them having done this in a couple of different domains. They sort of help automatically create that ecosystem because there is that support within the community. And we'll see how you can draw parallel within in a community sort of context, right? So with a progressive mindset, you want to highlight and celebrate winners in the community, especially those who've helped someone. Go beyond an emoji, leave a voice note or a video note, because people are craving, that human connection. There's a really well-known speaker called Simone Heng from Singapore. She talks about human connection. There is a bunch of videos. She's on Instagram as well. Would recommend following her as well, because she also talks about, everyone is craving human connection right now, and the impact, the effects that we've faced in the last 18 months. So go beyond, the standard sort of way of being or behaving. Experts, because you now have experts and you have mentors in the community, encourage them to share trends, encourage them to sort of see how they see the future sort of playing out, right, in their specific domain. So then that information trickles down. Instead of policing, and saying that, okay, you should or shouldn't do this, reward the kind of behavior that you want, because then more people sort of see it, right? It's a similar kind of thing. I mean, it's a carrot and stick. I mean, not saying that you use the stick, but if there are suddenly more carrots for a certain kind of behavior, you'll find more people gravitating to that. And encouraging a giving mindset, because too often, and I think especially in today's day and age, when people are craving like a personal connection, in some sort of, even a person of, two people together can form a community. That also is like a mini community on their own. But people want to understand, like a give and receive kind of mindset. And that's what they want to experience, as opposed to what's in it for me. Because, we're in the middle, in a different point, we're in the middle of what's called the great resignation, right? People have become far more aware of what is important to them, what really means something to them. So therefore, in the context of connecting with someone also, a giving mindset can go a long way. and celebrate new risks. And and when I was saying when there are new ventures, people in the Gujarati community, they go into a new domain and completely take over something else. Why don't we do business showers? And this is not my original idea. This is something that's out there, as opposed to if someone has started a new community, if you can, give them business, if they're let's say a branding and design company, right? They've just sort of started, or even a freelancer, and they're looking to get their first few clients. Sure, they can give you a better rate, but then the value of having a business, both monetarily and in their portfolio, could mean a lot to them, initially. So that kind of spurt. So those are a bunch of sort of parallels with the Gujarati community, and in terms of creating online communities. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about community frameworks themselves, like this particular one by Atelier, which is a community-powered services organization, and they're based in Istanbul, London, and Dubai. I'm just going to show you a couple of slides, and then I'll share a link later. Maybe Elise will share it in a follow-up email. But they actually have a detailed framework which might be easy for you to sort of follow. It's a creative community toolkit. For example, they talk about when you're thinking of creating a community, think of who are the people, who is it for, the definition of it, define the personas, clear curation of the kind of people that you want to have in. Then what is the purpose? Why does the community even exist? What is the impact that we want to drive? What are the principles? How will we communicate? Next, what is the systems? How does the community work? What is the finance structure? What is the governance structure? Some of these things, because you're creating structures for the community to outlast you. And that's what has worked really well for the community. For the Gujarati community, for example, they have lasted for hundreds, maybe, potentially thousands of years. So experience, how does the community feel? How do you want for them to engage? What does it look like? What does it sound like? The connections and the co-creations, what are the rituals? And then I think lastly, how does the community evolve, right? How does it scale? What are you going to actually be tracking in terms of metrics and the evolution of it in a way that it goes beyond? So this is a framework that if you go to atelier.io, you can actually check out the website. But then there is a specific PDF that will become available post this sort of webinar. And then there are a couple of others. So there is Fever Bee, which is actually a company that helps you, and I think they've helped about 290 or almost 300 odd companies to create their structured community sort of frameworks. And as they talk, there is stages of inception and establishment and maturity, then mitosis, where it can sort of evolve on its own, right? So this is something that they talk about. And then ultimately, you also want to be able to track this in the context of, we're creating awareness, let's say in the context of marketing and engagement, right? How is it that happens? You're doing interest, how members become interested in using or buying the product or service. And now this is in the context of, let's say, if you have a business or a service or a product, and you're creating a community specifically for that. So how will you measure interest? How will you then take them to conversion? How will you retain them? And how do they become your advocates over a period of time? So feverbee.com, that's the website that you can check out. And lastly, last couple of slides about other communities that are out there, in addition to, Elise talked about Makan for Hope, Asia Startup Network, and SG Founders, all of which you should definitely check out. And I'm a part, as you can see over here, part of Makan for Hope, as also SG Founders. A couple of other communities that I'm part of and also a big fan of. Business of Purpose is a purpose-driven, global collective where people are entrepreneurs, people who work in corporates and want to do better for the planet. They are part of this community. Art and Found is India's largest affordable art website and a large network of creators. And Better.sg is a tech for good platform based out of Singapore. And I've got a couple of quotes from the Art and Found and Better.sg founders. So Aditya says, in the context of building a community, pick a niche, understand what's happening, identify gaps, and build a better vision. It has to be far superior than what's out there. Don't let FOMO get to you, the fear of missing out. Build at your own pace while your own competition. Only you can create a better experience for the people, whether it's your product or your community, for the people that you want to engage with. And if you look at, this is something Gaurav has said, and this is Better.sg is doing some fantastic work in Singapore. Their community was around the volunteer experience, not the mission specifically. Each volunteer enjoyed themselves and then brought others. So then the community grew. So be clear about who is your true sort of the person who will instigate and help grow the community. Make it easy for new joinees to get productive and just jump in. Don't overdo the process at the outset. Encourage rituals. So key learnings from here, start with why. Put this out first. Attracting the right set is better than a large set of people. Create a mentor framework, mechanisms to pass down deep learnings of time. Create a safety net, trust and cultural familiarity to breed risk-taking and transparency. Referrals, encourage engagement within the community. So for whether it is for business, guidance or support, so that there's an experience of shared benefit. Ensure that, there is peer-to-peer. So learn from peers, build bonds in unknown domains, seek serendipity, use platforms like lunchclub.ai or Gather Round, where you can have conversations that are the water cooler conversations, right? And consistency is very important, not to rush, but establish recall in regularity of engagement. When you do all of these things together over a period of time, these 6 points and some others that you've seen, that's when you will likely have a vibrant community that will come to the fore. So that is, okay. I mean, that was it. For whatever reason, my contact details are not showing up. But that's it, ladies and gents. Thanks so much. I hope this was of use. And I think now, in the interest of time, because I think we have another 25 minutes, if there are any questions that there are, happy to address them. And also, yes, that's me. I think you can see that. My contact details, if you'd like to sort of get in touch. Thanks so much for being here. And if there are any questions, and we can address some of them. Elise?
Thanks so much, Karn. I really enjoy what you presented. It's really refreshing, from the way the information that you share and understanding community building from this unique perspective. Someone was asking if you would be sharing the slides after this.
Yes, very much. It is sharing is caring in the context of community building, right? Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, personally, I think there's lots of nuggets of wisdom that I would like to learn as well from what you share, and it was just a lot that you have shared. So, so good to
be. Short span of time.
Yeah, that's right. So, I would like to, open up to all of you in terms of asking questions. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask, because we have quite a close-knit group today anyway. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Karn, for this wonderful presentation. I've been actually looking through like how can I actually build my community, and the issue is always when you're getting started, right? Although you know your why, your purpose, your target audience and all those stuff, because I've arranged some masterminds in the past, and like I felt like, of course, for a community to really function really is really to have like at least several people that are like, regularly attending in that community, obviously, right? And it's like my challenge is always like, what if I only have like a few coming here? Then how can it be so valuable for them when you only hear like a few people? And so like my question then is like, how do we start, or how do we actually like increase those number and make it more valuable for them, right?
A great question, Madeline. Thanks so much for asking that. So like I was saying in between, right? Even two people, like one this side is a community. That's a relationship, right? So I mean, quite often when you get into a relationship with whoever you choose to get in a relationship with, you're getting to know each other. You're, if there's some good behavior you see on the other side, on your side, both people are, on the best behavior. They're incentivizing each other to sort of behave a certain way. And the more you get to know each other, the more you enjoy each other's company, if you find similarity, right? And so I think, especially early on when there aren't too many in the community, it becomes important to have, if you can find a cohort of people who are similar, and it might just be, that just might be it. I'm just sort of guessing, maybe if there's some challenges that you faced, I think maybe a closer vetting of what are the commonalities that bring the first 2, 3, 4 people together. Because if those are clear, then it's most likely then these 4, 5 people together will talk to another 4, 5 people. And then that 4, 5 people will multiply from there, right? So I mean, sure, the other way that you could do it is, okay, there were 3-4 people out there, and now we really need to get things going much faster. So then you need to create content, right? You might not have the time to wait for 20 people to join you before you actually can put something out. So then the content that you create now, whether it's by way of a podcast or whether it's by way of a video series, something, you need to find ways of pushing your message out into the world in a way that more people can find you, and you need to make yourself discoverable in some ways, right? And so then in that sense, it might mean that you create like a set of videos. Like I know that you were saying you've been doing, from our conversation earlier, you said that you've been doing a bunch of interviews, right? So maybe in putting some of that information out, that the fact that you're doing that will attract other people who want to be interviewed or who wanted to do similar things, So, which is why I said, right, like even with me, this is not proprietary information. I've spoken to a bunch of people. I was curious about this topic. There's no reason for me to hold on to this presentation, right? If it benefits more people, then why not, right? So I think it's just about how clearly you can put your message out from yourself first. If there's clarity in that, it will attract more people. Now, whether that you do it in a physical setting, in a virtual setting, or through content. But I think it fundamentally sort of starts from there, and then it's just about consistency, right? You look at the Guju community also; they keep coming to the shop, they keep engaged in that sort of framework over a period of time, and that subliminally people pick up cues that help them. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And this reminds me of a conversation we had. You mentioned about tribe and vibes. I always remember that. Yeah. So I think, and also you mentioned about consistency. So I think that's important. And what leads to consistency to me, I think, is about the kind of values you have, the interests that you have, and knowing and being true to those. Because when you do things that are in alignment to your interests, your priorities, your values, then that's something that you can continuously do over time, right? If not, it is normally optimizing for a certain short-term goal, and therefore, it's difficult to sustain. Yeah.
No, completely agree, Elise. I mean, and like for me, my own learnings, right? I was building out a tech platform till recently, and then I decided, and one clarity I had from that was that I realized, why was I building that? And then it occurred to me that I was doing it for some short-term gain, to go from here to there. And when I realized that, then it became clear to me that, oh, that's why I was feeling a little tired, feeling a little drained. I was not as invested in doing that. So, and exactly what you're saying, right? If you start feeling those things, then, it becomes more and more hard to sustain. And the same thing goes with, like you mentioned, your vibe attracts your tribe, right? Like attracts like. If inherently you just enjoy doing it, it will show up in your face. Like I love talking about some of this stuff. So I'm guessing you can sense some of the energy in me right now, but then if it was something, I don't know, if it was a complete different topic and I had to do it, I would put in the energy. But then by the time I have the 10th time I have to do that, it will become more and more difficult, right? And that's what happens. So I think I completely agree. Couldn't have said better myself.
Thank you. Anyone have other questions?
Yeah, I think Elise also mentioned at the outset. So my background is I've been running a branding and design company for a long time. I've like I said, 18 plus years in the branding marketing space. So Elise also mentioned that, we might talk a little bit about marketing as a whole. So I'd look to try and draw some parallels in the presentation. But if you have a question specific to that, whether to do with communities or with, say, a marketing, something that you're thinking about, happy to sort of chat about that.
Okay, so why don't we just, transition kind of smoothly into the topic of marketing. And I think marketing in terms of perhaps more of digital marketing, perhaps since I think all of us are mainly, from the area. Yeah, but feel free to discuss anything outside of digital marketing, but still associated with marketing. So yeah, I think for me is really, I'm really interested in this topic, intrigued with this topic, right? Because of what I do and personal personal interest as well. Like I love to read books about the consumer mindset, how to influence their decision. So there are like authors like Dan Ariely, who write about the upside of irrationality, because we always think that people are rational, but actually we make a decision based on emotions, and some of the decision that we have seems to be irrational. Yeah, so this is really an intriguing area. So someone has a question around viral, how do we create viral effect? Yeah, so I think to me this is an interesting topic, because nowadays we have a lot of channels, social media channels, whether it is for professional networking like LinkedIn, or more personal like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And I think TikTok been trending a lot these days. They just reached 1 billion user base, and I think it's growing really quickly. So what your think? I want to open up the floor to discussing about how do you think people achieve virality with their content?
Is there anyone in the room who's sort of involved in marketing and has an opinion, has been involved in creating some viral content? Oh, Melvin, okay. I mean, if there's something you want to share.
I haven't really created much of a
Can't
viral
hear you.
content, but that's something.
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
I don't think I have done like anything having a viral effect, but it's something interesting, and that's the reason why I asked how. Because I've seen, like, I've been posting, I've been creating content, but how can I make it like more engaging for my audience? Like, how will I actually create more value to them, and for them to also respond to like the things that I do?
Yeah, so I mean, in the context of virality, right? It is. I think it's as much about the content. First, I mean, put a caveat out there in saying that I haven't been involved in the creation of some video that has got 50 million views or something like that. So I can't say I know this firsthand. But I think a lot of it is just about understanding what is topical, and also being able to jump onto that trend, because that trend is only going to last a certain period of time, right? And over there specifically, like, for example, there's this on Instagram, there is this new thing called these two guys who are American, but then they dress like they're Jamaican, and they have these sort of weird Afro sort of haircuts, and they call themselves the Island Boys, right? And the whole thing is, I'm an island boy, island boy, and it just goes on and on about that. And you suddenly have just a whole bunch of people tripping on that. Now, if you go to if you look up the Island Boys on Instagram or on TikTok or anywhere else, it's actually very smart what these guys are doing, because they know that it's a short-term trend. It's not going to last very long. So suddenly they're saying, book us for meetings, meetups, gatherings. You want to do a gig with us? We've got some merchandise, so on and so forth, right? So I don't know why. I don't have any specific answer that might shed light on this specific thing, because I can't say I've been part of it. But I think trends inherently are short-lived, and I think a lot of it also comes down to there's an engine behind it, which is saying that, okay, we will push it out on a bunch of these platforms. We will spend this much money, which will then ensure that we have these many views. And then when we have these many views, we will then leverage it for this kind of sponsorship or these kind of deals. Cumulatively, whatever we end up spending, we will have made this much extra as the delta. And what they end up having is spending on the advertising and pushing the media out alone is a sizable chunks of money. So that is when it's done in I would say a manufactured way, but when it's done in a very systematic way. And I think there's as much of that kind of approach as there might be something that happens very organically on its own. At least you're sharing something?
Yeah, can you all see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, so I think what Karn mentioned about topical, meaning like what trending topics there are. And I want to share, this reminds me of Airbnb, you know, how Brian Chesky mentioned how they raise capital to tide the business over and taking the opportunity when there was the elections. So they created like 500 boxes and they sell it, market them as limited edition so that people would buy them. Yeah, so I think creating this mindset of scarcity and kind of in your slide you mentioned of FOMO is often very effective. Yeah, and I think becoming viral requires courage, right? You know, being able to stand out, being memorable. I think these are really important. And nowadays, I feel like there's a lot of trend. What is trending is really authenticity, like being your true self. No longer are people looking up to like, you know, people who are looking perfect, totally gloss up. Yeah, it's like the more relatable, the better.
Yeah, I completely agree, you know, because it becomes difficult to sustain an inauthentic message over a period of time. Yeah, I mean, as honest as you can be makes a difference. Maggie is asking, how do we know if we are using the correct strategy? Because for something, it takes a longer time than others, and how to access to keep going or to shift to a new strategy. Great question. Thanks so much for sharing that, Maggie. So, you know, I think if we go back to what we were talking about, community building, and you know, everything comes down to understanding who you're talking to, right? And it comes, so usually, let's say, because for the work that I do from exit design and the consulting work that I do, I always look at every brand has two kinds of customers. One is your paying customer, you know, who might actually buy the product or service. But the second one, who's equally important, is the employee, vendor, partner who's going to deliver to this person, right? And if you don't take care of this person internally, which, you know, now in larger corporates or even internally, we talk about the employee experience. Whether you're a small company or you're a massive 10,000 person or 100,000 person organization, if this person is not as invested in this, he's not going to be able to deliver on this. And what happens quite often is that top management, or let's say, you know, Maggie will have the best intent, right? She will say, okay, I'm going to put this out there. But if the 2-3 people in your team are not aligned with that, and they're doing it just because you're telling them to do it, your customer is not going to experience the benefit of that, and the whole strategy is going to fall short, right? So that's one insight or one thing to sort of look at. How do we sort of arrest that? And, you know, to address part 2 of your conversation, right? How do you know whether you want to shift or whether it's the correct strategy or not? It comes down to going back to these two people, which is your internal customers, your employer, vendor, partner, supplier, and your external customer. What I do is I have what I call stakeholder conversations. So talk to them. I'm thinking, I'm Maggie, and, you know, I don't know if you want to put, you know, the business or the service or something that you run, Maggie, that'd be great to know. But let's assume, you know, you're launching, you know, you're launching a new phone, right? And you're reaching out to a certain kind of audience. Now you might say, okay, there are all these competitive phones out there, and there's this kind of buying behavior. So let's put this together, let's import it and sell it to them. And then you find that it doesn't work because you haven't spoken to the people who you're actually selling to. So you're selling it to teenagers and they already have a bunch of options. What is, if there is no differentiation between yourself and any of the other people in the market, then you're just going to compete on price. Therefore, in the context of, you know, creating a certain kind of brand perception about yourself, you need to engage with these people and understand how is it that they're seeing the competition. You know, how are your customers seeing your competitors? If you are selling a Samsung phone, how is this person seeing a Xiaomi phone, or, you know, or a Asus phone, or, you know, an Apple phone? You know, and if you want your product to sort of stand out in perceptions, you'll understand the words that they use. You will get insights, you know, in saying that, okay, these are the words that they're using, these are the gaps that they're saying that exist. And all of this becomes part of your strategy that you then create, that you can then go out and test. And the best way to do that is, I mean, like, you do it in small ways. Like, let's say, for example, it's very important to, you know, certain kind of theory. you send out, how does it show up tactically? You send out 2 emailers, you try them with 2 different subject lines. You send out 2 emailers, you try them with 2 different kinds of images. You check the open rates of some of those. You're putting out a Facebook ad, or you're putting out an Instagram ad for some of these. You put the same thing with, if you look at Netflix, and this I'm quoting as of a stat of maybe 1 or 2 years ago, but Netflix had said that they have 33 million unique versions of Netflix. What does that mean? That means that their algorithm functions in a way where every time someone goes in, if you like horror films, even if you're watching a comedy, you will find like that little image over there with the name of the movie showing with a little bit of blood, or it'll be slightly darker in color. They have that degree of customization. So it becomes very important for you to first take those insights from who you're talking to, whether it's your employee who's going to deliver this experience to this customer, who's going to pay for the experience. What is it that most excites this one and this one? Take those insights, arrive at a certain kind of strategy, and then test them in small ways, and you can do that iteratively to see what results you get. I hope that helps. Amazing. You're welcome. Anytime. Yeah, I mean, I early on, right at the beginning, I had asked everyone, did anyone say about which communities they were part of? Oh, they did actually. So Sarah said this from baking, social enterprises, tech for good, nonprofits, dancing. It is suddenly so interesting, right? When people introduce themselves that way. All right. Yeah, Elise, did you have anything else you want to sort of add, or question on marketing you want to sort of discuss?
Sure. I think for me, I've been asking the question about about what is it? What is the digital content strategy? What could be a good example?
That's a very broad question. But like I said, I think it just comes down to context. I'll tell you about how I am, like, let's say, for example, right now, I spend a large chunk of my time with an HR tech company, and how I'm thinking of how we're collectively as a team are thinking of how do we create this digital strategy, right? So we've identified there are 3 kinds of customers. Now, those 3 kinds of customers, now if you think in the context of funnel-based marketing, there is top of the funnel where you want to create awareness. So it's awareness, consideration, and purchase. Top of the funnel is awareness, middle of the funnel is consideration, bottom of the funnel is purchase, right? And within these, you'll have different kinds of content that you create. So let's say, visualize it as, I've got these 3 different personas, and I've got top, middle, and bottom. Therefore, I have a 9-box grid, right? Because I mean, if you have 2 personas, it's a 6-box grid, and if it's 1 persona, it's a 3-box grid. Now, in our case, it's a 9-box grid. Now, within this, we're then further thinking of, okay, in what places do we need to create short form content, and what places do we need to create long form content? So short form might be, say, social media stuff, might be a short sort of voice note based sort of shorts that you sort of share on your blog. Long form might be ebooks. Long form might be long tail sort of webinar format engagements, right? And so you have that. Then you have, say, what kind of content do we need to create that's a little bit more emotional? What kind do we need to create that's a little bit more logical, right? So then maybe logical content might come a little further down when they're doing comparisons. Okay, yours is this HR tech platform, there is this other one. Why is yours better? Which is that's when you'll have SEO pages online, which will say, okay, you're buying this car, then these are all the features of it, and these are all the features of it. And this one has everything in green, and this one has like a bunch of red ticks over there. So comparisons, right? So, and those become like more logic-based thing. But then that might come a little further down. That might even come at the bottom of the funnel when someone has actually decided that they want to engage. And in the middle of all of this, you then also need to think of the variety of media or the mediums that you might use, right? I mean, so the media might be, are we going to use video? Are we going to use text? So like readable content, on blogs, etc. Are we going to use audio? So we'll have podcasts and that kind of stuff. Are we going to have webinars and live events where we're going to have interaction? Like this is a live event. What kind of interaction are we going to have? How often are we going to have it? And you can just look this up and you look in the context of, say, a marketing funnel and then different stages of different kinds of content that come in at different stages. You then need to be able to, whatever it is that you're creating, you need to be able to track and measure whether it's moving to the next stage or not. Because quite often what ends up happening, and that's where sometimes marketing or engagement strategies fall short, because we create a bunch of stuff, and because we haven't moved to the next, we haven't created the next bit of content, it falls short because people don't know where to engage. That kind of thing. Yeah, and then of course that's the media, and the mediums can be the wide variety of digital channels that you have, whether it's on social media, whether it's on email platforms, whether it's on live events. And now, of course, when we're going into a sort of offline thing, we need to be able to do hybrid events. Like, Tech in Asia, I was in an event not too long ago, where the entire interface was like Super Mario Brothers, like a video game. And depending on if I walked closer to someone, their video would become sharper, the voice would become louder, and that mimics the kind of thing when you in a conference and you go out and when you're walking closer to someone, their voice becomes loud and you can see them clearly, right? So we'll have these kind of formats also. But I'm just trying to describe like a broad framework. Putting strategy together for this would need the research bit, which is what I talked about earlier.
Thanks so much. I can visualize in my mind, I think firstly starting with the funnel and then looking at which content actually fall into which stage of that funnel, and then also looking at what the audience is looking for, measuring that, and then kind of like iterating the strategy over time. Yeah. So thanks a lot for sharing all this. The time now is 5. I want to just ask everyone, anyone have any burning question before we leave? Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us, and I hope this has been a useful session. Any last words, anyone?
No, I've just shared my LinkedIn profile. Would love to sort of stay connected, and yeah, I think the slides will be available, and there are a couple other links also that I'll share that we can be shared later.
Thank you, Karn. Thank you, everyone. It's so nice meeting everybody. So stay in touch. We will be sending an email to you on like the recording, the slides, and also other links that you may want to join us. Like, for example, the SG Founders Slack is not just for Singaporeans, it's also for anyone who is across Asia. So what we do is we basically share events like that, we support each other, and we answer each other's questions, no matter which stage of the entrepreneurship you are at. Yeah. So thank you and enjoy the weekend.
Thanks, Elise. Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone, guys. Enjoy the weekend. See you soon. Bye.